You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege to interview with the former NFL long snapper Colin Holba. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
Appreciate
great.
being on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to play professional football?
So I actually going into my senior year, I didn't know if I was going to have the opportunity, and then things just matriculated. I got contacted from a bunch of agents. Ended up being one of the highest rated guys at snapping, and so it just kind of happened. I didn't go into college expecting that I was going to play in the pros, but I was very blessed that it did.
What was that experience like getting to play in college at Louisville?
It was awesome. I got to play with two first round quarterbacks. Obviously had Teddy there my first year, and then played with Lamar on the back half. And my senior year was his Heisman year. So being able to play with two first round quarterbacks when the program was doing really, really well, that was really awesome. And then a ton of other really good players. I think I played with seven or eight first rounders over the course of my 4 years there. So just really talented guys, really good football teams.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to play with Teddy Bridgewater and Jackson before they ever knew that they wanted to be professional athletes?
I think both of them kind of knew from the way that they were both big time recruits, and they were very, very successful in college at an early age. So I think they knew, um, I knew Teddy at the end of his college career. So he had already won the Sugar Bowl. People were already projecting him to be very high in the draft. So that was, you kind of get on the team and you're playing, in my mind, with an NFL quarterback already. And then Lamar was really cool just because you got to see, I was with him for 2 of his 3 years. So you're able to see the growth that he had, and just the way that he was able to lead a locker room, even as a freshman. You know, he was just captivating. He was must see TV.
What was that experience like getting to put on that Louisville jersey, that red jersey?
That was awesome. I grew up in Louisville. I grew up a Cards fan. Um, so something special about, I followed him from the Orange Bowl back in '07. So I knew all about the U of L. I knew about the rich history and tradition. And honestly, something cool is that all my family lives in Louisville, so they're able to go to a bunch of games when I was playing. So, just being able to stay home was really special for me.
What were some of your biggest accomplishments throughout your college career?
So I was a baseball manager my freshman year. So I would say just even walking onto the football team, I got cut twice trying out before I made it the third time. And then just, every step of the way was really cool. The first time I got to dress, the first time I got to travel, the first time I got to play, being told I was on scholarship. Um, and then the whole journey with the Senior Bowl and the combine. Um, and drafting, and every part of that was really cool. I met my wife. She was at U of L, so that's an awesome, awesome experience. I was a student my freshman year when U of L won the national championship in 2013. I recognized that game actually happened. So it was just a really, really cool time, and each step of the way was really cool. I have College World Series ring for my freshman year being a baseball manager. So just being able to be a part of some really great teams, be a part of some really great cultures, and just take that with me.
Of course, what did you learn during that time? Obviously, when you said that you got cut twice and then you made the team.
Um, I don't know. Some people believe me when I say this, some people don't, but I truly felt like God was leading me to play football. I'd quit football after my junior year of high school, um, to focus on baseball and thought I was going to play baseball later on in life. And so went 2 years without playing football. I grew 2.5, 3 inches, put on 50 pounds my freshman year just to have the frame to be a Division I football player. Um, so it was, it's been a determination, I guess, but it was kind of blind. I felt like I was being led to play football, and I'd met the right people, and the right circumstances had arisen. So I was never really totally discouraged. And that was something that was very beneficial looking back on for my NFL career, being on 6 teams in 5 years and over 30 workouts, and you're not going to make them all. And so just being able to keep your head down, not take it personal, and just keep working.
Of course, going into your senior year, did you know that you were going to enter the draft? And where was the team that you were hoping that you ended up at?
So my senior year, I wasn't expecting anything from the NFL. The guy that had started ahead of me at U of L was a 4-year starter, and he had been invited to some mini camps, some off-season workouts and stuff like that. So that was kind of where my bar was set. I knew I was bigger than him, but I'd only had 2 years. We ran a pro style punt his senior year, so he had some film of that too. So I really didn't have a ton of expectations going into my senior year. We had two freshmen, a kicker and a punter starting. So, my focus going into my senior year was really just making sure those guys felt comfortable, and they did awesome. They both set records as freshmen their year. I mean, they're incredible. They're still some of my best friends. So that was really my biggest focus, going into my senior year, was just helping them feel comfortable and be ready to rock. And they certainly were. It was probably about November when I started getting contacted by agents. And then I got an invite to the NFLPA Bowl, which I had to turn down to go to the Senior Bowl. And then talk about the NFL Combine happened. So it all kind of happened at the end of the season, but it happened really, really fast. As far as teams, I actually grew up a Steelers fan, so being drafted by them was really awesome. Um, obviously you knew about Big Ben, you knew about Coach Tomlin, and so many other guys on that team that I actually grown up watching and rooting for, and being able to be a part of that organization. That was actually really, really special.
What was that feeling like, obviously, when you did get drafted by the Steelers and you made your dream come true of becoming a Steeler?
It's really relieving, actually. I wasn't expecting to get drafted. I knew that I was going to get signed that day. I didn't think I was going to get drafted. I knew that there were going to be some offers. I'd already talked to a couple teams saying that, hey, we can't draft you. We really like you. We're going to try and sign you in free agency. Um, so I knew that I was at least going to get signed. But looking back on that, I was so nervous. My mom had ended up inviting some people over to their house, and I couldn't even watch it. So we had a TV on in the upstairs where some of my friends were watching the draft, and everybody else was downstairs just trying to keep me distracted, keep me uh, settled down. And then I got a phone call from a 412 area code, and I knew that was Pittsburgh's area code. And I walked outside. They weren't on the clock. I forget who was the pick ahead of them, but they were on the clock. And you know, I answered the phone, and my agent had texted me earlier that day and said, "Hey, if you're going to get drafted, it's probably going to be the Steelers in the 6th round, or it's going to be the Packers probably in the 7th round." And so, when the 6th round came along and their pick was coming up, I saw that 412 area code come up, and I answered the phone in the room. Said, "Hey, Coach Tomlin." Let everybody know who it was, and then I went off into the room because it was probably about an hour worth of phone calls, once that initial call started.
Of course, what was that feeling like, obviously, when you did get that call from Mike Tomlin to now become a Pittsburgh Steeler?
It was awesome. I couldn't tell you who got drafted right after me. Totally shut off after that. Didn't care. It was just great being surrounded by a bunch of friends and family, being able to celebrate that. I had my girlfriend, who's now my wife, there with me, and her family, and it just was really special. And honestly, it was kind of a relief. We didn't know what was going to go on with her. She was going to go back to school, so we didn't know what was going to happen with that. And Pittsburgh is not a long drive, pretty short drive from Louisville. So that was honestly, once the dust had settled and we thought about that, it was like, okay, we're going to a local team, not going out to California or something. Obviously, I ended up playing for the Rams and the 49ers. So, I wasn't afraid to travel, but at that moment it was a team I rooted for. It was a great franchise. They had just come off a season where they were going to go to they were in the AFC Championship game, so they had really high expectations. Hall of Fame quarterback, presumably a Hall of Fame coach, fantastic team. It was really really special to go to a place that had so much to offer.
What was it feeling like for you, obviously, as you said, you rooted for the Steelers as a fan, but now you got to play for them. What was that like playing for the team that you rooted for?
So I never actually played a game that counted, right? So I played 4 preseason games and then got cut. Was one of the last guys to get cut out of training camp that year. But I remember our first preseason game was in MetLife. Played the Giants, and just putting on that iconic historic jersey, playing another iconic historic team with the Giants in New York City, New Jersey, but playing New York's team. That was that was really cool. And honestly, once you're on the field, it didn't feel any different than college as far as it's still football. But I think just knowing that wasn't a replica helmet, that was my helmet, and I was a part of this franchise for that little blip of time was really cool.
Of course, what was that feeling like coming in and getting to replace the legendary long slapper for just a few moments?
Yeah, Greg was awesome. We had the same agent, so there's kind of a little bit of a handoff. He was super super gracious. He was still doing some rehab, so he was in the building a little bit, but always was kind of out of sight. Let us do our thing. So it was a very smooth changing of the guard, but he was a great resource. He was super helpful. He invited me and Lauren over to his house to meet his wife and his family. So just super embracive of the change, super embracive of me. Was a great mentor to me. I wish I could have carried on his legacy a little bit better and been the next great snapper for the Steelers for 12 years. Obviously, that didn't happen. But as far as what he was able to extend to me, he's nothing but class. He was a true professional.
Of course, what were some of the things that you learned from Greg Warren to help you along your stops in the NFL?
A lot of them are technical to snapping. So there's not much to say on a podcast that's gonna translate to people. But the biggest thing was this is at the end of the day, this is a business. I think he kind of saw that I was a fan of the Steelers as well as a player. And so he just kind of reminded me that you're a player and this is a business. And hopefully if you get to play long enough, then you can become a player who's a fan, not a fan who's a player.
What was that transition like from going from the Steelers to the Jacks?
So I went I got cut and immediately went on a workout to the Saints for their because they didn't keep a snapper out of camp. So I went on a workout week 1. I went on a workout week 3 with the Jags. Went on a workout to Arizona, to New York, to Green Bay. I know I'm leaving out a stop or two, but I had started the workout buzz. I'd started substitute teaching in between teams. Just give me something to do, keep my routine schedule. I'm a big creature of habit, big routine guy, and so I was definitely chomping at the bit and ready to go. I was glad to join the Jags when I did. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know that they were in the playoff contention at that point. I was kind of pissed from being cut and then not making so many teams in a row with Arizona, with Green Bay, with New Orleans, and all that stuff that had happened. So, I was in tune with what was going on in the NFL, but I really wasn't watching on Sunday. Sundays, I was more, seeing who was playing well, seeing just watching individual guys. Um, and so that was really awesome getting to Jacksonville when I did in November, and they're middle of the playoff hunt. They hadn't really separated themselves from winning the division just yet, and so it was not just joining a team, but joining a team who was making a big divisional push.
Of course, what was it like getting to compete against the veterans on the Jags that was in that spot?
Yeah, so you had Matt Overton and Carson Tinker. Both of them are awesome guys. I mean, truly, truly awesome guys. Both of them were in the building a lot. Carson was a huge mentor for me. He wrote the foreword to my book that I published. I have a great relationship with him. Matt Overton, who was hurt directly in front of me, he tore his labrum, and that's what brought me in. He was an awesome resource. He had been through the ringer, his first few years of going through the USFL and all these other leagues, and then getting in with the Colts and being there for a long time, being a Pro Bowler with the Colts. So just having those two guys there is awesome resources. Um, I mean, I would have to give those guys credit for helping me have the career I did, just because they were resources when they didn't have to be. Carson really took me under his wing. He was definitely an awesome coach for me. We had two really good special teams coaches, but then I had Tink that was just a phenomenal long snapper coach that was with me a lot, with me pretty much every day at practice until his son was born. So it was just a really, really unique thing to have both those guys in the locker room, both those guys able to talk to and help coach you up, because as a snapper, generally you're just the only one. Generally, they only carry one guy, so there's only one. And it's a kind of a shame because those rookies don't really have a ton of guidance and they can't really learn from a vet like a lot of the other positions can. So I was very, very fortunate to have those guys to talk to and to learn from.
What was your experience like going to the 49ers to get to compete for the 49ers?
That was fun. Really fun because it saved me. I'd signed with the AAF, the Alliance Football League, earlier in that year and was getting ready to do that and go to Atlanta. And then I'd worked out with them. They gave me a call on Thanksgiving Day, so getting picked up by them, being able to sneak 4 games in with them, and then be with them that off season of 19. And just what was really cool about that was that 18 team. When I got there, they were starting to turn the corner and were really competitive in games. You could tell they were just waiting for Jimmy to get back, waiting for some guys to get healthy. And then obviously that 2019 49ers team was just special. They're a player or two away from maybe winning that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, but to be able to be a part of that team and watch them grind it out at the end of 2018, and then just the offseason work and really seeing what it takes to be a champion in this league, and watching it unfold in 2019, that was a really cool experience.
How was your experience like going to the Giants and going all the way to New York?
That was probably my favorite stop, honestly. Um, again, you had a veteran presence of Zach Diossi, who'd been there forever. He's him and Eli are Mr. Giant for their generation. Both of them came in together, went out together, won 2 Super Bowls together. Went through all the highs and the lows of the Giants together, and he just was nothing but class. Zach was, again, one of these guys. Still friends with him today. Still keep in touch and talk to him today, and that's just not common that you see a veteran being able to pour into a young guy. I was still only in my 3rd year, so very, very in need of coaching and being taught up. So I really liked I really liked my time in New York. It's a awesome, awesome organization. We had a young unit with Riley and Aldrich. We all got along. It was a great little unit that we had for the short time that we were together. But that was the one I tell people that was the one that got away. I was sad that Shermer got fired, and then they brought in Coach Judge, who was not my biggest fan, so I never got a shot to compete. Obviously, COVID happened, and it just the wheels kind of fell off after that. But that end of 2019 was probably my favorite time period outside of the playoff run with the Jags.
What was your experience like going from obviously the Giants in New York, all the way to LA in just a short time?
Um, I that year was so weird because that was the COVID year with all the workouts that took a week. So I was just so ready to be on a team and be signed. I'd gone on 8 workouts that year. I'd sat in a hotel for 8 weeks for a bunch of different teams, just waiting to get picked up. Literally sitting in a hotel doing nothing. Had a couple teams that, because other guys failed COVID tests, they signed other stuff. So that was such a weird season. So it was so nice to be picked up by a team. And again, they had me, when they signed me, Jake McQuaid was getting ready to leave. And again, another great, great snapper. So to be able to say that, I got multiple Pro Bowlers that I got to work with, multiple Super Bowl winners that I got to work with. Just very, very cool, very special. And again, that was one where that was just kind of a breath of fresh air or just a exhale because I was just so tired of going on workouts. And that, I'm sure that COVID time period was tough on everybody for a multitude of reasons. And that was just wearing on me. And so just being able to be on a team and being able to compete and play football again and just kind of make something normal about life, that was super beneficial.
Of course, through your process of the NFL, what has it been like obviously going from being a Steelers all the way to going from team to team to team and signing with them?
It definitely took a toll on you. And I would say my journey is probably more common than not. There's plenty of guys that'll get picked up, get cut, get put on a practice squad, get elevated, get cut, and they move around. You just don't know about them that much because they're not the stars signing these big mega deals, but they're the guys, they're the backbone of football teams, or the guys playing special teams, or they're the fourth wide receiver, the third tight end. And so it's, if you can lock on to a team, and that's awesome. If you can do that for a year or two and stay healthy and just get in the right situation. But, it just goes to show how hard the NFL is and just how much you got to always be working at it because my story is not unique. There's plenty of guys that are getting signed and cut and signed and cut and cycled around. So just being able to keep that mental grind and being able to have an awesome support system and a great perspective.
What was that transition like from you from going from the NFL to that short time in the XFL?
So I never actually played in the XFL. There was a little window when I got drafted by the XFL. I told them I was still trying to play in the NFL. At that point, I'd had a workout scheduled with the Giants. I was very upfront with them. I was thankful that they drafted me. Were going to give me a shot to play. But at that time, I'd actually already had the workout scheduled in advance with the Giants, and I was upfront with them about that. And then I told them, if I'm with the Giants for a while, it's not smart for me to go play one season and then go right into another season. So luckily, there was never any drama. The team in Dallas was very, very generous to me, and I felt like we were fair and honest and upfront about what everybody's situation was.
Of course, what were some of the things that you learned as player that you didn't know before getting into the NFL?
Just do what you say you're gonna do, um, especially to yourself. I think a lot of people are great at taking direction, and even if they're not good at receiving the direction, they're able to go for it and do it. I think we're taught so much in school of here's your assignment, go do it. And a lot of people there's self discipline of if it's something that I want to do, and no one's holding my feet to the fire. Am I actually going to do it? Am I going to give myself a deadline? Am I going to hold myself accountable to the standard I want to hold myself to? So I don't think that lesson is unique to me. I think there's a lot of athletes that they had to learn that themselves to get to where they are, whatever level it is. And I think that's a great lesson is just if you have goals, just be disciplined enough to hold yourself accountable. Set small check marks that you can feel good about. Set something small once a week that you can hit, and that over the span of 3, 4, 5 months, you can see a growth progression, and you're not looking at these huge, massive goals, but you're looking at these little checkpoints that as you build on them and as you stack them, that you've reached some pretty lofty things.
Of course, throughout your career, what has it been like honestly getting to put on different jerseys and represent different teams?
So I got very lucky. I got to play, three of the teams I played for, the Steelers, the Niners, and the Giants are very, very historic NFL franchises, 4 Super Bowls in New York, 6 Super Bowls in Pittsburgh, I think 4 or 5 in San Francisco. So a lot of Super Bowl trophies that we got to walk by. The Jags were awesome. They're an awesome city, super great fan area. Cincinnati in 2021 was obviously a team that was hungry for their win and their deep playoff run. And they got a guy like Joe Burrow who he's just a stud. It's going to be him, Mahomes, and Allen for a long, long time in the AFC. Um, and then the Rams, obviously the Rams, Super Bowl team in 2020 or 2021 as well. Um, and they're a historic franchise, back and forth between St. Louis and LA. So I felt very blessed to be a part of some really, really special times for some really special franchises. Was definitely rooting for the Jags again in the playoffs this year, um, and the Giants too. So it just each team represents something a little bit different. You can tell the city's a little bit different. So it was really cool to experience a different culture, the different fan bases all throughout the country.
What was that like, obviously, as a football player, getting recognized and building your fan audience around you?
Uh, as a long snapper, you shouldn't really get recognized a lot, especially when you're getting bounced around. Some of the older guys that have been there forever, they get recognized, but we don't really get recognized, and that's just good. That's just fine for me. I like to fly under the radar.
Of course, looking back on your career, what are some of your favorite memories and moments, and what were some of your high achievements?
So we played college game day against Florida State my senior year and beat them by a lot. I think we scored 70. That was Lamar's breakout game. That was a really fun game. Then we went down to Death Valley a couple weeks later, played college game day, Lamar versus Deshaun. We ended up losing that game, but those were my two favorite college games I ever got to play in. And then playing in the playoff that whole run my rookie year with the Jags, going to Pittsburgh and being able to knock the team that cut me, knock them out of the playoffs to go to the AFC Championship game. You know, maybe if Miles Jack wasn't called out of bounds, maybe the Jags can win that game and I get to go to the Super Bowl my rookie year. But that was a really fun season. I got to play my one and only Monday night football game with the Giants, and it was Giants Eagles. So that's always a big, big rivalry, especially on Monday nights. That was a cool atmosphere. We got to play a preseason game when I was in Kansas City against the Chiefs, which ended up being the Super Bowl rematch. Um, because that game was in 2019. So there was just, every moment is cool. My first game in the league was against the Browns, who would have been if I made the Steelers. That's who the Steelers played the first week in that season too. So that was kind of a cool little bow tie. It was my first NFL game, was supposed to be in Cleveland against the Browns with the Steelers, and it just ended up being in Cleveland against the Browns with the Jaguars. So that was cool, and Coach Marone gave me a game ball for that game. So there's a lot of really cool memories, just cool experiences I've got to share with my wife along the road, and just the guys I've met and the opportunities that, looking back on it, it's a small finite window that I was really sad about leaving, but it was really special when I was in it, and I'm glad I got to experience it.
What has the transition been like, obviously getting to retire in the NFL and go on into the corporate world?
It's tough, I remember, so this is my first full year out, and I remember not too long ago, about 6 weeks ago, I started getting kind of tired. My wife's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "It's time for an off season." She goes, "Yeah, there's no off season in the real world." So missing that schedule, that kind of is a bummer. Just being able to relax, and we were still working out, still doing stuff in in the off season for football, but it just wasn't the same. So having that day in day out, just looking for the weekend kind of mentality, and just training yourself to create little checkpoints, create little goals for this job, so that the days don't just run together, and you can be the best you can be, and just continue to have a positive attitude. I think a lot of guys struggle with a little bit of identity crisis, especially because by the time you get to the NFL, even if you're not the best on your team, you're one of the best in the world, and you know it. So there's the confidence of that even as a rookie, you're one of the best in the world at what you do. And so pretty much anything you start after you retire from a sport, even if you're somewhat good at it, you're not world class at it. So just having to start at the bottom of the ladder again and work your way up can be frustrating at times, especially when you knew that you were world class at one little thing, even if that was just throwing a ball between your legs.
Of course, now in retirement, what are some of the things that you're doing now outside of the sport of football?
So I wrote a book, so I get to speak about my book occasionally. I'm a dad, so playing with my son, hanging out with my family has been awesome. My wife's getting ready to go back to school, so just being able to watch her invest in her future and her career has been great. I play a lot of golf. I'm trying to read more books, which I guess I could have read more books when I was playing. But just really being where my feet are has been really special.
Of course, what advice would you give those people that are in college that are looking to play in the NFL?
If you're looking to play in the NFL and you're in college, whatever year you're at right now, have the mentality that you're a pro right now. I think it was very annoying when I was in college because I didn't understand it. And then it was kind of sad once I was in the NFL and I watched guys do this. But one of the saddest things or frustrating, it's more frustrating than sad, is guys who, once their college season ends their senior year and they're getting ready to go, prep for pro day and all that stuff, that's when they start eating right. That's when they start being responsible with what they're doing on the weekends and their free time. That's when they're, putting extra work in the gym. That's when they're doing all the little things, when they're watching more film, when they're doing more of the skill stuff. And they think that putting 4 years worth or 4 months worth of work in is going to make a difference. And it's really not. And I hate to say it, but it's just frustrating to see guys think that 4 months of focused, concentrated work is going to beat out the guys that have been doing that for 3, 4, 5 years. Some of these guys have been doing it since they were in high school. That mindset, and so my biggest piece of advice to anybody, if you're a high school player and you're serious, like you want to go play pro, like you need to act like a pro now. And that doesn't mean don't have fun. That doesn't mean you can't, have an off day or give yourself a break. Like, as a pro, we were very meticulous about scheduling downtime, scheduling rest, scheduling time of relaxation and resetting. But it's just a mindset of when you are whatever you are doing, do it to the very best of your abilities, whether that is film, whether that's drills, whether that's eating, whether that's your free time, whether that's sleeping, whether that is, what you're doing in school, whether that's rest, whatever you're doing, attack it with a mentality of I'm going to win every time. That just trains yourself that one play at a time on a Saturday or a Friday when you're playing, that you're going to win that play too. So it all kind of snowballs into itself, and just building on that. Um, that's something that I think guys, they think they can like jam in and for 4 months between their last game and pro day. And a lot of the successful guys, that's their mindset from a very young age.
What advice would you give these college football players that are entering the NFL and going through that NFL draft process?
it goes by quick. And I know that everybody around him has told him it goes by really quick. These days are long. I remember, you have, I had a month between my bowl game and the Senior Bowl, and then I had another month between the Senior Bowl and the Combine, and then I had another month between the Combine and my pro day, and then I had another month between my pro day and the draft, and you had another like 3 weeks between the draft and actually showing up for rookie mini camp, and it's a lot of downtime, especially if you're not taking classes. You have a lot of free time. Um, be prudent with it, but it'll go by fast. So just enjoy the moment, enjoy the process, because I tell people this all the time. I don't ever want to do the NFL Combine ever again. That being said, I am super thankful and super blessed that I got to experience that I got to do that I got to be a part of that. And so just taking everything one step at a time and enjoying the moment and not rushing it away because it will go by quicker than you think.
What advice would you give those future rookies that are entering the NFL for the first time?
Find somebody, whether it be a coach, whether it be um, a current older player, whether it be a former player, find somebody who you can lean on. Because there's going to be some days that you're getting ripped left, right, and sideways, and you were the stud. You were the stud in college, and you probably were the stud in high school, and you could probably be a stud in the NFL too. But that rookie year, those first couple weeks, especially in OTAs, when you don't know anything, it's you're transitioning in, you feel like everything is brand new again. Find somebody who you can sit down with and watch film with, and they can make it football again, and they can relate it to you. Don't be afraid to watch film with a coach one on one. Don't be afraid to ask an older guy to watch film with you one on one, and just bring it back to football. I use this example all the time, but TJ Watt, we were in the same draft class. He got, he was going to be on the punt team. He was going to be on all the special teams units. He was not right out the gate. He was not defensive player of the year, franchise type player, at this rate, Hall of Famer TJ Watt that he is now. At that point, he was first round pick TJ Watt, and we hope that he develops, and he did. Obviously, he did. But I think having a guy like JJ as your brother that he could watch film with and learn with is a great example of how he was able to explode in his role. And obviously now TJ is the heartbeat of that franchise.
What advice would you give those people that are going through that transition process of retiring from the NFL and getting into real life after football?
Have a transition. Have a plan of how you're going to get out. Because I've played with guys and I know guys from college who they didn't have an exit strategy. And so that, whether you decided to leave the NFL or whether the NFL just never stopped calling you, there's a lot of guys that are waiting around for a phone call for a year or two, and it just never happens. And then they decide, well, I guess football's over. And they're just trying to kick around ideas of what they want to do. I would say have an exit strategy. Go back to your off seasons. Figure out what you're going to do. Go network with people. People are going to want to sit down, have a cup of coffee with you, have lunch with you, just because you play in the NFL, and use that to leverage conversations, to leverage networking, to leverage connections, to go shadow people, see what they do, see what they like. Go talk to your college advisors, people back at the university that you went to that you spent a lot of time with. Just be intentional about what your exit strategy is.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I mean, I technically have social media at Colin Holba on everything, but all the apps are deleted on my phone. So if you don't hear from me, I'm not checking my social media.
Thank you again, Colin Holba, for your interview and best of luck in your future as a former NFL long snapper.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, You can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Colin Holba, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it, man. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.